Chapter 12 is called My Party's Future. She's talking about the GOP. And she says, how did we get to where we are? Where are we going? And in this chapter of 18 and a half minutes, she doesn't answer either of those questions. She starts by saying her favorite picture of herself in her political career is when she was 2 and she was sitting between Barry Goldwater and her father. Goldwater being the Arizona senator who, endorsed McCain to replace him. And, she goes on to talk about how much she loves Barry Goldwater. Of course she does, because he's the architect and sort of the impetus of all of the Reagan policies that have pretty much ruined the country. So great. And she goes on to talk about how, the Republican Party became the working class party and the populist party, and doesn't acknowledge the fact that they did that on the backs of the working class people that they've screwed over. They convinced them that everybody else is terrible, only we can fix it, vote for us, and then they get in office and they don't fix it and blame the Democrats for them getting nothing done. It's impossible to understand at this point the mental gymnastics people have to go through to defend the GOP and defend voting for them and supporting them when the GOP is doing nothing to help those people that are supporting them. The fat cats, I get. The people that are taking advantage, the 1%ers, all that kind of, but not the working class, not the people that are being just blatantly lied to. I'll never understand that level of brainwashing. At the whole time accusing the other side of gaslighting. Then she goes on and talks a lot about her father, that he was not a liberal like people think. I don't know who thinks he's a liberal. And that, the 3 pillars of conservatism are fiscal conservative, socially, limited government, socially conservative, support the military. But well, none of that matters anymore, because really all that matters for the GOP at the moment is keeping power and doing nothing. She talks about believing in limited government, and that she says her father did too. But this is where there's a fundamental difference, because as we've seen over the last 40 to 50 years and throughout history since the Industrial Revolution, without regulation, we become an indentured state. So there needs to be government intervention. I've said this before. Capitalism without regulation is slavery. Without, making sure that we are reining in the capitalists, we'd have children still working in factories. We'd be slaves. We'd be encamped, forced to work, maybe fed, probably raped. Like, it would just be enslavement, because without those protections, it's all about the dollar. And the best way to maximize the dollar is not to have to pay your workforce. And we're doing the best that we can to not pay the workforce. $7-something an hour is not something somebody can live on. And the minimum wage that is suggested of $15 an hour is still barely enough to live on. You can't feed a family of 2, let alone 3, at $15 an hour at a full-time job. So anyway, she, pontificates about the beauty of conservatism. Pats herself on the back for being the only pro-gun, pro-life female on TV on a regular basis. And that again says that she's trying to give a voice to the people that don't have a voice. Goes on a huge tirade about how the left no longer believes in free speech, that we're trying to squash the voices of conservatism or anyone who disagrees with us. And I don't remember what that movie parody was, but it's not even parody because they do it on TV. Like the Republicans go on television to complain about how they don't have a platform for their views. They're on TV. There's a platform. You're already on it. Talking about, and it was whatever the movie was, there's this clip of Lisa Kudrow saying over and over again, there's no platform for conservative values. And, she says, I said it on Tucker Carlson, I said it on Fox News, and I said it to, and she goes on and on about all these places where she said, like, the thing is, it's actually true. That's actually happening. That's what these morons are doing, going on TV and, writing op-eds saying, oh, we're persecuted because we can't speak our truth. Fuck you. Anyway. So yeah, we're trying to squelch all speech that doesn't agree with us. And she talks about how we look at the flag as something that is now dangerous or evil. And the thing is, Megan, I don't think you've looked around at how the Republican Party is using the flag divisively. They don't believe in what the flag stands for. They just want to defend that piece of cloth. Yet then they use that piece of cloth attached to a pole to try to kill Capitol Police officers. They'll use the image of that piece of cloth, drape it all over themselves, which violates whatever amendment that is about the fucking not using the flag for promotional purposes. But they don't, and they'll bitch and moan about someone taking a knee in protest to police violence, but they won't actually stand up for what that flag means, which is it's supposed to represent freedom for everyone. Not just the white people. I can see the Statue of Liberty out my apartment when I walk my dog every day. And for the last 5 years, I've been referring to it as the Statue of European Immigration Only, because it's held up as this symbol of welcoming. And that's the last thing that we are at the moment. But if you come over on a boat from Europe, yay, glad to have you, say the Republicans. But if you come over by land from the southern border, or if you come on a plane and you're brown, I don't think maybe not so much. So she talks about loving the flag, but again, she's missing the point about how the flag is being used, and specifically by people that are a part of her party. She doesn't acknowledge one bit the racism, the conspiracy theory, the Proud Boy oath keepers, that militia contingent that exists in the GOP, that the GOP, and apparently so are the Democrats, afraid of disturbing, because they have so many guns. We're apparently afraid that they're just going to finish their uprising. But we can't be afraid of that. We need to stand up to that. And the January 6th commission needs to move a little faster about getting some of these people in jail. But I digress. So we're suppressing speech as Democrats. We don't want. Apparently, she thinks that we are afraid to teach history. She's specifically talking about the actual history of the Confederacy. We want the actual history of the Confederacy taught, and the history of racism taught. But you know, she's saying critical race theory without using the word critical race theory, which no one's been teaching in public schools. That's just another racist dog whistle for the fucking morons. They don't even know what critical race theory is. There's a great interview. I saw it on Twitter, where the guy in the Virginia governor election, and he says, "What's the most important issue?" And he says, "Making sure that our kids are taught right, and not being taught critical race theory." That's what he says is the most important issue in the Virginia gubernatorial election. And the interviewer says, "Well, can you define critical race theory?" He says, "I don't want to get into the details of it. I don't really know it that deep." Well, what is about critical race theory do you have a problem with? Again, I don't really know enough of the details. But it's like, well, then you don't. Then how can that be the most important thing? It's just nitwits. So yeah, we're erasing history. There's a whole lot in here about getting digs in. She says at the Democrats, but it's actually all the terrible things that the Republicans are doing, but she's blaming Democrats. It's the same game they've been playing for 40 years. That if you don't like it, it's their fault. And honestly, she says one of the reasons that Trump won is that he didn't lie to the people, that he didn't tell people that the United States was failing or faltering. He told them that it was going to be great again. Because the American people don't really want to recognize all the problems that we have. And I'm not going to deny that worked. Lie to them. But what did he do for them? He didn't. And what does the GOP do? Nothing. They don't actually provide anything for the American people. And I don't mean by handouts. And if we're going to talk about handouts, the deepest red states are the ones that take the most in government help. And the ones that give the most to the federal government with taking the least are the Democrat-led states. New York, New Jersey, California give more to the federal coffers than we ask in return. The entire South is like, no welfare state. Fuck off. It's just the whole hypocrisy. Now I lost my tangent about, she went on. Well, she sat over the last year and watched America burn to the ground. I'm sorry, burn itself down over racial protests. She says, never having had a bad experience with a police officer, I assumed that police corruption and brutality was not a widespread issue. Look the fuck around, lady. That it just blows my mind. Like she literally just says it didn't happen to me, so it can't be a problem. It's snowing outside. Global warming isn't real. What a dum-dum. But at the same time, it's like, okay, finally, like your eyes got opened a little bit. You now recognize that there is racial injustice in this country. Great. Okay, you're on board now. That's how you got here and how long it took is not the point. At least you get that there is an issue, but then has no offering of how are we supposed to fix this? No realization that the police as an organization as it exists right now will not change itself. That's been proven over and over again. Where are the police that are denouncing all of the brutality? Where are the police that are actually reforming themselves to say, okay, we're going to do a better job? It's here and there in little pockets, but for the most part, it's the line is, defend the blue, and blue lives matter. Fuck you. Anyway, um, this is it rambles on for 18 minutes about nothing about the future of the party. She does admit that the bell's been rung by Trump and they can't go back, but she doesn't offer any bit of insight about how they plan to wrestle the GOP away from the white supremacists and the Oath Keepers and the Confederates, fucking Confederate flag, which, by the way, was never flown during the Civil War. That flag was made up in the 50s and 60s to protest the African Americans getting civil rights. They're so dumb.